for you now. You got 2 minutes of my time, and I don't really break too easily, but I'm worth it, 'cause I'll slip into your dreams tonight. Oh, so give me your all. I'll take it to Mars. Oh, I'll stick like glue inside your mind. Just watch me breaking your sweat. You're falling into me, touch me. I swear you would do anything.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Unscripted, where we have conversations that matter. Of course, joining me, I have Miss Eliza Inez. My name is Lily, and Ayana Man Hope. She had to have that thing hyphenated. Today, we are going to talk about how we live through it and the things that we've kind of gone through, especially as women. We take on so much, and tomorrow is not promised, and sometimes we don't even know what tomorrow is going to look like. So
That's right.
just want to bring these beautiful women on. We are women who have gone through traumatic life experiences, and if we did it, so can you. So we don't want to close the year out without encouraging you and pushing you to move to the next level, knowing that no matter what situation you're going through, with God, all things are possible. So each one of us will take a moment and just give you a little snippet about what we did, how we got through the hardest times of our life, and just giving you some encouragement. So we want you to go ahead and join in, comment below, let us know that you're listening, let us know that you are with us, and together we can all make it through the end of 2020. So what's up, Eliza? What's going on, doll?
Nothing much. I'm ready for the new year. Is everybody ready for the new year?
Absolutely.
I think we're all out with 2020. It's a matter of hours and minutes now.
Absolutely.
Oh my God. Out with the old and with the new.
But I'm excited to talk today about living through it and how us women go through so much, and even behind closed doors. And I feel like sometimes it does start with different cultures and different areas of ways of when we're younger, how things are said. What goes on in the house stays in the house. I don't know if everybody has went through that or just been there, but I think a lot of it, as we come to women, yeah, as women, we grow up to kind of have the same thing that goes on, and then we just kind of have it to her, especially growing up as a Latina and a Black woman. It's like you have to be this strong Black woman to cover up everything and not say what's really going on, which is really hard. So I'm really excited to kind of get in the mix of talking about living through a lot of the hard times. Mainly, I would say going with things behind closed doors.
Absolutely, Eliza. I think that was really great that you mentioned about just the whole upbringing sometimes in different cultures, how different mindsets are just kind of imposed. Like, this is how you handle problems. This is how you really don't handle problems at all. And life happens to us all, men and women. But I know for women, we always have at least 5 things going on at one time. So for us, life is always happening fast. And we don't always get to handle the emotions that happens in each moment that comes to us. So to acknowledge that, I am grieving is sometimes a thing that we don't even get to do until a moment happens that takes us out of our character because we didn't even realize that we were hurting in the first place. So I think that was really good and something to consider when it comes to grief.
It's interesting because my children are biracial, and it was always hard for me to being that I was raised a certain religion and then their father was another religion, but we practiced non-denominational in the home, and how we handled things, how we did things was a lot of forgiving, and it would help us move on. And the way it was difficult, but it worked for us, it worked for us, but you don't realize that the way you deal with it, you don't think about 10, 15 years down along the line. And then that's why we're here, and we're trying to deal with what we had before and trying to make amends. Now it's within ourselves, because we were so cultured and we were a product of our environments. And when we become products of our environments, we even bring it on to our other children, and it trickles down from generation to generation.
Absolutely. And I think that it's important, like how we talked about how we were raised, right? So I grew up in a household with a single mom who is very strong even to this day. And it's kind of like, don't be telling nobody else our business. And she wasn't wrong in that teaching. That's how she grew up, right? And so it's like, at what point do we break that cycle? Because even when I went through a bout of, domestic violence, I was a young mother. Some of the hardest times for me was being a young mother, being depressed very young and very early on, getting married very early, getting divorced, getting remarried again, both marriages having domestic abuse, both mental and physical, the mental being worse for me, and really having to live through that. But because I grew up with what happens here stays here, I didn't share it. I didn't tell my mom what was going on. I didn't tell my closest friends what was going on. And for me, I tried to deal with it by myself, because telling somebody what was going on, or realizing that I can't deal with this thing emotionally, like it's really hurting me, caused me to get on antidepressants, which I almost lost my life to. I'm a strong advocate. If you need them, not great, but take them for a moment, but still seek the help. Do not let that be your only means of getting over something or getting through something. Like I said, so, going through domestic violence for me was really, really difficult, because I had children. I had 3 girls, and then I had a son, and not sharing what was going on. So I remember like getting off of work and literally crying my whole 30 minutes going home, and just falling out of control. I remember seeing people look at me in the car like, "Ooh, what is she dealing with?" And then I would get home and I would suck it up and walk in the house like nothing happened. And even after the second marriage was over, literally going through um just being in my singleness and not being happy, not even knowing what happiness looked like anymore. I didn't know what that is. So I'm glad that we're doing this show before the year is over, because so many women and men, even young kids, are facing this right now. So many of them are going through depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, brokenness, financial strain right now, worrying about if they're going to be evicted, not knowing where their next meal is going to come from. And I'm here to encourage that person again, that if we did it, you can too.
Right. And that's one of those things where I've worked in education for many years, and I've seen a lot of unhealthy relationships. And we, again, going back to how we're brought up, a lot of these girls nowadays, what they see is what they learn and what they bring into their own relationships. I was a teenage mom, and it wasn't the physical aspect that I had, but it was a lot of the mental, because it was hard to deal with how I was brought up and how I looked at other cultures, and I wasn't as diversified as I thought I was. I
Mm-hmm.
went to a Catholic school all my life, so I was in a little cage. And then when I got out of that cage and I was actually amongst the real world, I seen things and people that I'd never even thought, this is wow, this is amazing. And I took things the wrong way, but I also learned that and the hard way. I learned things the hard way. Like you said, Shay, coming home and I wanted to scream, and it was like, it was almost like you made your bed, now you lie in it
Yeah.
type thing. And that's
Mhm.
basically what your mom said. Well, that's what you get. You went and had kids early, then what did you think it was going to be easy? And it's almost like you're in this bubble and you can't get out of it, and you can't say anything, you can't share anything. It's something where, what do you do and who do you handle? Because now all the other friends that you had, everyone just pushes away, because nobody wants you with that girl, because look at what she did.
Yes.
And you feel shameful. When you feel shameful, you just withdraw. And when you withdraw, that's like you said, Shay, picking up and feeling depression. I think I was really depressed and never even knew I was depressed, because my life was just spiraling all the time, all the time. that you don't even realize what your actually your emotions are, because they're like a roller coaster, because your life is really going up and down constantly.
I think that was really good with what you mentioned, just being to identify and make the distinction between
Yep, that's
grief
how
and depression.
I can agree with you on that as
Go ahead,
yeah, I
Eliza.
can definitely agree with you on that, as far as being depressed and not even knowing it, and
Mhm.
just basically feeling numb, feeling numb to the fact I don't know what's really
Mm-hmm.
going on, especially young mom. And then, like me, like, Shay says she had kids young, I had kids young, and then being in a domestic violence relationship, and it was hard because you figure, like, you don't know, like, is this really what it is, or am I just depressed, or is it just me? Because you're just learning to be in a relationship, and on top of it you're learning to be a parent, so it's all comes in one. And then I never knew anything about postpartum depression, so after that it just, I understand, I can like vibe both on the fact of like not understanding, you being in depression and
Mm-hmm.
wanting to just scream because you feel like there's no way out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how you feel, because you're in this bubble, and you're in this bubble, and it just, then you have another baby, and it's just, you're not even educated enough. You go from being a child to being a parent, but these kids don't remain kids. They're not cute. They're cute for so many years, and then all of a sudden it's like they're young, they're growing up, but you're growing up right with them. And you're also experiencing the domestic violence, the verbal abuse, the who's going to want you now because look at, you've been having babies since you're 14 type thing, and it's just like now your mind's going, but at the same time you have to keep going and you have to keep evolving, because you're a kid, you're a parent, you're trying to go to school, you're trying to be normal, but there's no normalcy once everything starts affecting you.
Absolutely.
Right. And I can just piggyback off of kind of what both of you are saying, but just kind of right in the middle, that place where you're not yet at parenthood yet, but you're just kind of getting into adolescence, where you're just getting
Mm-hmm.
to starting to figure things out. You don't even know yourself yet, and you don't even know your emotions yet, but
Yep.
you know that you're going through it. That's just kind of like a mix of what you both have said. And I'm just touching in the middle base of that. You're figuring things out and you're going through the emotions of things, and you don't know exactly what you're feeling, but yet you're going through it. And just being able to make that distinction between grief and depression. Grief
Yep.
is more so of that roller coaster that we were just talking about, where you have happy moments and then you may have just a random
Mm-hmm.
burst of sorrow, whereas depression is just a constant rut. So just being able to one identify that you are going through grief, and I wanted just
Mm-hmm.
to kind of clear up the misconception of what grief is, because grief is not always death. Grief is not always somebody died. Grief could be a loss of a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
a a divorce, a loss of good health, a loss of a good job, a miscarriage, you're grieving, loss of a pet. If you even, some people discount the loss of a pet, but it's still a sense of loss, and even a friendship. So it's different forms of grief, and it doesn't always have to mean death, but it can be something missing. And oftentimes we can live a life of grief because we're missing something, but maybe we haven't realized what that thing is that's missing.
Absolutely. And I'm so happy that you brought that because I was actually gonna, talk about those stages of grief and how we grieve, right? So when COVID first hit, some people were grieving toilet tissue. I'm just saying, like,
Right.
we couldn't find toilet tissue. Like going through the whole motions of worry, of concern, of I don't know what tomorrow brings. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay my bills. I don't know how I'm going to feed my children. Um, as for men, I don't know how I'm going to provide for my family. Thank
Mm-hmm.
God my husband has the type of job that he has because he was able to keep the home going when I couldn't do events. Like I had two events, that I had to cancel, and no one knew how long COVID was going to last. No one knew how big it would have become. No one thought I'm going to lose a person that's closest to me during COVID or even get sick. All of the things that we were told, and then with the unemployment, ending for a lot of people. People are afraid right now. And
Yes.
so we talked about certain things that we've been through, being a young mom and how we kind of got through that process and what that process looked like. For me, I just want to go in and say that I had to first identify what that thing was that was causing me so much sadness. It wasn't because of a relationship. It was just because I didn't even know what love really looked like or how I
Yes.
was going to be affected, because that's why I'm so particular. Like, you can even ask my oldest kids and even, my 13-year-old daughter now, about a boyfriend. What can a boyfriend do for you while you're in high school? Absolutely nothing. And for me, that was my way of protecting them of the emotional roller coaster that comes along with having a boyfriend, because for me it was bigger than just having sex, right? But a lot of people right now at the end of 2020 don't know how their tomorrow is going to be okay. That was why I thought about doing one on grief, but it was like, no, because it's bigger than just grief. It really is, how do I come to an understanding of what I'm facing, what I'm dealing with, where are my emotions? I may wake up sad one day, I may wake up happy, or I may have many different emotions throughout the day. And the purpose of this show today is to help you, or to give you the necessary tools to say, we did it, so can you. You can get through it. And the word through is rough. It's not going to feel
Right.
good. It's not going to feel easy. You have to literally allow yourself to go through the process. I use a saying all the time that says, feel, deal, heal. If you don't feel what you're going through, you're never going to heal from it, because
Exactly.
you're not going to be able to deal with it. And if you're not willing to deal with something, you're not going to feel it. So you have to kind of go through that process. You have to allow yourself to feel the emotions, you have to allow yourself to deal with it. And once you deal with it and you are feeling it, no matter what it is, then you can bring healing. Healing can actually come, total healing, forgiveness, like Lily talked about. Forgiveness for me was huge. Anybody, Ayana, have you had those same, things? Like, what did you go through, and then how did you overcome that?
For me, like I said, it was going through life blow by blow, being there, showing up for everybody else, but not really showing up for myself,
Yes.
and, intending to me. And so I had eventually gotten to a place where I had that moment in my life, that chapter in my life where it's like, okay, I'm not being myself. I'm defining what I stand for, what I truly believe. So that showed me I had to go back and see where did I hurt that I didn't tend to,
Mm,
because at somewhere I got lost in the sauce. And so that caused me to have to step away from the plate, from certain responsibilities, learn the word no, because I
Mm-hmm.
had a people pleasing, and so I had to learn that word no. I had to
That's
just
a hard
intentionally
one.
take time. Yes, yes,
Yes.
especially for a people pleaser. So I had to learn that word no. I had to step away for a moment, feel like you said, Shay, to be able to deal with it. And of course, sometimes you have to educate yourself on what you're dealing with, because if you don't know what you're dealing with, you're unequipped. You don't have the tools at all. So I had to educate myself, and I had to put the word. I'm a Christian. Put the word right up next to that and see how the word lines up with the knowledge that I've gotten, and feed myself so that I can be better, be more aware, conscious of myself. And I've really dealt with a little bit of everything, a little bit of everything, from grief, not, like I said, not death, but people missing key relationships that were needed to help
mhm,
bring me up, to help
Mm-hmm.
me be prepared for life, or just have that support. So it was a lot of things that I didn't realize that I was missing until I got to that moment. Like, hey, where were these people? Where were these people at? And so grief was a big thing for me. Just it was just learning self love, self care, um, dealing with shame after making a big mistake that it seems
That was
like
a
it
good
wants to be
one.
your defining moment, something that defines you, but you have to almost keep a sober mind in that moment. Like, this is not me, this is not who I am, but this is what I did. Why
Right.
did I do this? And so it's a lot of things together, that it was like the perfect storm, and it really came put me in a place of having to really just step back
Yeah.
and do all of those things I just mentioned.
Yeah.
Mhm. And it's interesting how Shay, how you said, and you too,
Yes,
Ayana,
I can
with the whole,
definitely relate.
I'm sorry, with the people pleasing and with the emotions, when we think at an age, even when we're 17 or 18, we think we're grown, but we're really doing things emotionally. We're just we're feeding off of emotion. Do you really love that guy? Do you really, it's this attachment and this bond, what did the kids used to back in my day was ride to die, he's my guy. No matter what, that is my man. And it doesn't matter, this guy would cheat on you, do anything, but there was this loyalty, unhealthy loyalty, that we would have, not knowing that we are protecting them but never ourselves, and we
Right.
never would take care of ourselves. We're looking out for everyone else, like you said, Ayana. We're looking out for everybody else except for ourselves. We're making sure he's okay. My ex-husband, the father of my children, was a horrible addict. I didn't even know it because I was so young. I wasn't even allowed to go even anywhere. I couldn't even go literally to an R-rated movie unless I had a parent. That's how young I was when I had a child. He was 7 years older than me. So I didn't even know the other side of the fence. So when I did get there, it was almost the shame, and people, it was a whole different generation older than me that I didn't know, but I'm dealing with my friends, and it was all the phone calls. It was just, talking all the time on the phone. I couldn't go out, but it became an emotional attachment. It
Yeah.
wasn't, it was a physical when it shouldn't have been physical. It wasn't even a natural physical. It was almost like I better be okay because this is my man. This is what I need to do type of physical. It wasn't like you're home, you have your intimacy. It's very different to be intimate than to be doing what else you have to do because you feel, you have to do it. But there's a lot that I learned and I've gotten over where I had this, my faith has always been big, but when I started going, I went from one Catholic church and I started going to non-denominational, non-Christian. Like you were saying, Ayana, my faith just changed because I didn't feel ashamed in that church. And the father of my children, he took me there, and it was just something that I felt like that that pastor was giving his story, and I knew I had a story, but I also knew that I would go to that altar and I would be forgiven for all my sins. And I knew that I wasn't a bad person. No matter what that other man in that other church said, it was a sin. I was a sinner. I'm living in sin. I had children born out of wedlock. That wasn't who I was. I know who I am. And that being strong and keeping that within me all the time, that has brought me to where I'm at today. And it is something where, I never let nobody break my spirit. I almost did. My spirit was broke once, but with the faith of God that I've always had, that has kept me strong to where I'm at right now.
Yeah. And Ayana, I'm sorry, Eliza, I know that you went through your situations, kind of tell everybody what you went through a little bit, and then how did you live through it? Because I know you're still currently living through it as well.
Yeah, so I think one thing I want to say is that I do get my strength from my mom because, a lot of the things that we've been through and she's been through, I just like, it's like we have that automatic, like, let's go, you got to get up. Like, there ain't no time for, feeling sorry for yourself. You just got to keep it going, keep it moving. But I had, like, like I was saying, with grief and everything, I had such an anger problem growing up because of the fact of me losing my brother, losing my father, and then just getting attached to, my previous abuser, like, that has passed away now. And, I can hear my mom in my head when she's like, he just reminds you of your brother. And like, it's like what you've lost, I was trying to gain. And I was just so stuck in that mindset of like, this is what's going to bring me closer to them, even though they're not there. So it's like,
Mhm.
then the whole mindset of like, what stays in the house, what goes on in the house stays in the house. I just kind of had it to where I was like, he's abusing me. He would sexually abuse me. He would do all this stuff to me. And it's like I had to just like keep it myself, and not knowing that I could, if I just would have went to my mom, or like one of my sisters said, this is what's really, really happening, and I'm losing myself. I've lost myself. And I remember, me going to family outings, and they're like, you just look like a shell. Like my eyes, everything like was just, I wasn't there. Um,
Yeah.
so getting through it, I like, once I left the relationship, I had to do some deep soul searching. I had to get it together, and I had a baby. I had to get it together. I really did. Like there was no other way to put it, as far as like I have the time to just go off to a retreat and just get it. No, like I had to get my faith in order. I had to, start going to church again, believing in myself, surrounding myself with the right people,
That's
because
it.
my circle at that time was not a good
That's it.
circle. And like them enabling, was putting me down even more and making me think there was something more wrong with me. So once I
Yep.
left that circle, everything, and I started going to church and I started believing in myself, everything just started to just fall into place.
Hmm.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I think the one thing that we all have in common that we've actually brought up is our faith, or standing on the word of God. People don't realize how powerful God's word is, right? Even the people that really don't know who he is, if you are to just begin to speak his word, eventually that thing will manifest itself inside of your soul. The Holy Spirit will take over, and a change will come, a shift will come. For me, I had to walk, it was years that I went by without forgiving my ex-husband. Years. I literally despised him because I felt like I had changed. I was no longer open to, like, it was so many feelings and emotions that really I was putting on him in the relationship, when I had to take accountability. So I think a huge part of living through something is taking ownership for your part in which you played in it. I brought up a book the last time we were on, well, not the last time, but a few times before, and I want to. This is a great read for single women, for married women, for dating women, and it's called How to Love a Black Man. And not the fact that I think that it's specific to a black man. I think it's just making sure you don't lose yourself while trying
Right.
to love that person. That's really what I'm getting from this book. Not losing yourself. So it's important to, when you're going through something, to identify what your need is in that moment. You must get to a point of accepting, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is what I
Mhm.
desire, even before relationships. For me, I told my husband that I can deal with a whole lot of stress. I can take on everyone else's burdens, and I can take on that. But the one thing that always seems to get me right here, like it sucker punch me, is my relationship with my husband, because I've given so much of it that sometimes emotionally it becomes too much when it hurts, right? Because love, being married or being in love, is not about the fluffy butterflies and fluffy feelings and all of that. It's really about learning how to deal with this other person, learning how to manage your life while this other person is in it. And when two become the one, you know, it's not about agreeing all the time. So for me, that's like the harder thing now. But I always say I never want to be a fake Christian. I don't want to be that one and be like, oh, praise the Lord, hallelujah, while we
Right. And then somebody's fighting at home.
right. I don't want to do that. And, I want to be an example that, yes,
Yeah.
you can have children early, or yes, you can have failed marriages, or yes, you can go through depression, and you can still come out on the other side. You can still find love. You can still be whole and happy and healthy, and even financially, because a lot of people in 2020 are struggling financially to make ends meet. And with that being said, you can still
Yeah.
be whole and happy on a limited finances. You may have to readjust some things. You can't go get your hair done, or you can't go get your nails done, or if you're dating somebody, you may not be able to take them out on the most expensive date like you did before. But it's finding that happiness in that thing that's negative, you know, as well. And I see Ayana nodding her head, so I'm assuming she's in agreement with me. What are your thoughts on that, Bub?
Right.
No, I absolutely agree, and I believe that one word that stuck out to me that was said a little bit ago was acknowledgement. You know, we have to acknowledge that things are what they are, and then from there, think, you know, come up with a plan to be able to move with what's going on right now. Even with this year, with everything going on, I mean, if you don't adjust with the time that we're in, you're gonna definitely be sour. We have to learn how to adjust to new norms sometimes. Now we have to have a standard, have a standard, but you know, being able to adjust to new norms and be able to be open minded in how we move. You know, how we do things so that we can sustain ourselves, we can sustain our mental health through you know, uncertain times like these. You know, I had to learn, you know, during the quarantine, during the shutdown, you know, even going through COVID myself, me and my family, just how do we move now to be able to still keep ourselves healthy, still keep ourselves sane, stable emotionally, stable spiritually. Hey, people are going to church now online. You know, it's just we just have to learn, you know, to keep the standard. What we want for our house, what we want for our family, what we want for ourselves, and then learn how to how to how to stick and move. We can stick and move to be able to get what we ultimately need. And one of those things is just acknowledging where we're at to be
Yeah.
able to pull out the tools after that.
I agree. And I think I also, one of the things that I think I could say collectively with all of us is trust, and who we put our trust in, and how much trust do we put into things, because, and trust and that leap of faith. Like now, our biggest thing is science. Everyone's putting in everything now is pending on science with COVID and what's going on. And a lot of people have their pros and cons about that, which is it still puts us in a position where, okay, what are we gonna do if 50% don't agree and the other 50% do? Is this ever going to end? Because no one is in compliance, you know? And just like we put trust in our relationships, we put trust in our partners, the disappointment that we get afterwards when things don't pan out the way we do, you know, we put trust in our leaders, we put trust in everyone. It's the way we put our trust in how we learn from who we trust does build us up, because we're all a work in progress, and we learn from all these different things that we take accountability for. If you don't take accountability, you don't learn. If you don't trust in yourself, then how are you going to trust in anything else, you know, for anything else to work out for you? And I strongly believe that, because where I'm at now, and with all the grief, and when not only just the grief, but the way grief traumatizes us, and trauma is very big, and trauma and grief do go hand in hand, whether it's trauma in a relationship, whether it's grief, whether it's trauma in death, whether it's trauma in something that happens to you, as far as in a criminal perspective. These are all things that when we're traumatized, it's all how we react to things, and we lose trust in a lot when things happen to us like that. And trust is a very big, and I believe that trust right now nowadays is something how we are reacting, how we are supposed to do things. Like you said, Shay, unemployment, people not living within their means. You know, we need to give a little to get a little. And where we're at right now, no one's trusting anyone with anything, because they're just being so stoic and not having that faith. But if you have the trust, you have the faith. And where I'm going with that now is that we're living in cycles. We're living in all these different cycles now. We're living in all these different cycles that are very toxic. And if we keep continuing to not trust, and we're going to remain toxic, and we're never going to get ahead. And even in our relationships and in things that happen in our lives, we need to learn how to remove that toxicity by trusting and by taking accountability with what it is that we do, because that takes us to the next level. Growth. That's what you need to do. It's growth.
Yeah. We have to learn how to speak
Right.
things into existence. You have to
Exactly.
tell the enemy,
I
get your
totally
hands off of me.
Yes. Amen. That's
Depression,
right.
you will not have me. Anxiety, you will not have me. Suicidal thoughts, you will not have me. And begin to speak that thing to yourself, because if you don't have people in your life that is helping you to change your mindset and change your thought process, because you are afraid of who to trust, then you have to begin to speak the word over yourself. Begin to encourage yourself. The enemy's job is to steal, kill, and destroy. He wants all of you
That's
to
right.
be down in the dumps. He wants you to be destroyed. And an idle mind is the enemy's playground. I don't know how many times our young children, our husbands, we don't know the role of a man, which I'm so happy, because I believe next week we're going to be taught, or 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be speaking with a man who is amazing, and he'll be talking about that walk with God and dating in that, as well. So also it's a great way to kind of look at how we should be picking who we are dating, because that person right there can control you in a way that is detrimental to your mental health. I always say that love in the wrong hands is worse than hate. No matter who it is, it doesn't have to be someone that you're dating. It could be a friendship. A friendship can really
Yes.
do something to you that can really, really, really hurt you in that sense. Eliza, what are your thoughts on that?
I like listening to y'all, like it's so inspirational from where y'all came, and just when Ayana was talking about the word acknowledgement, and then when my mom was talking about grief, and it's just as far as like had to forgive somebody that didn't even ask for my forgiveness, and because he had passed on. So I had to take that with a grain of salt and just go forward and have, like you're saying, walk in that faith, and just say, you know what, like take control of my life and who I am, and not have that person have any more control over myself. And it's
Mm-hmm.
as far as like what I was comparing in the relationship, and I should be looking like this, and you should be having this together, and you shouldn't be having your hair like this. So now, as a grown woman and not a child anymore, I feel for so many of these young women that are in social media, because they have it, I feel, so much worse, where they have so much to look at, so much for people to comment on, so much to, like, and then they start beating themselves up, and it's a hole that I feel like they can never get out of,
Yeah.
unless they have like that faith. They have the time to reflect and see who they really are and really love themselves. It's a hard process, but working through it every day and believing, and then above, I believe anybody can get through it.
All right.
Yeah. I definitely want to take a moment. I appreciate everybody. We don't want to give too much time. I want to bring each one of the ladies back individually, because I know Lily, lost a few people to murder, not just death. And I know Eliza has the same, and, Ayana dealing with depression. So there's so many things that we can actually talk about, but I'm so happy that we took a moment to share out. I want everybody to give their kind of closing thoughts, and I'll let Lily go ahead and go first on your closing thoughts for today. What do you want to leave the listeners with?
I want to leave the listeners with being a teenage parent, being a bereaved parent, and being a single parent and a divorced parent. I mean, it all sounds the same, but there's a lot of growth that I've learned. My only son was murdered. My 16-year-old son was murdered 16 years ago. The 6 months later, his father was murdered. And it was something where I really had to deal with that. And I had just had a baby. I was going through postpartum as well. My biggest thing that I can actually put out there to anyone is get involved with the right people. I found a circle that everyone was so positive, not pitiful.
Yeah.
I didn't need the pity. I needed power. I needed someone to help build me, not to condemn me, not to throw rocks at me. I've had that way too long. But if you get with the right people and you get into a circle that you are going to be for each other, the biggest thing now is, fix each other's crown. We need to continue to do that. And I had those women. I had those prayer partners. I went to so many different grief meetings. I felt worse. But when I went to church and these women were there for me, and that prayer and going up to the altar, maybe prayer doesn't work for everyone, but you need to talk about it. You need to let someone know what is going on. Even if you write a journal, I started my journal, but the biggest thing that got me going, that it just let go. I had to forgive the murderer. When I forgave that murderer, everything fell into place in my life. My pastor said one day, Lily, you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to move on, or you're going to stay teed off. He goes, and you're letting them people be in control. And he said, it'll come to you. And I felt prayer. I actually felt people. I felt things were working, but I was just so all over the place. I wasn't allowing it to seep in. I wasn't accepting it. When it got quiet one day, I knew what it meant. And I was like, you know what? I do forgive this person. And no one understood. How are you going to forgive who killed your son? Well, forgiveness isn't for them. It's for you. And when you forgive that person, then everything else, you begin to heal. When you begin to heal, you begin to understand. When you begin to understand, then you begin to feel better. When you begin to feel better, I mean mentally, physically, emotionally, then your spirit is alive again. I went back to school. I got one degree, and got my social work degree, and then I just got stronger because now I wanted to advocate. I wanted to help other people. And that's where I'm at right now. And, here I am on this platform, and it's amazing because the discussion was really great. But my whole thing, to close it up, is you have to forgive. You have to get with the right people.
Absolutely. Ayana, what are your thoughts on that?
I think what you said was amazing, because it touched on something that I was actually going to say. Of course, in addition to acknowledgement, who you surround yourself with matters. When I was going through, I didn't need pity. I didn't need a party, but I needed power. And I needed power from people who knew God, people who were not ashamed and not afraid to pray for me, to speak life into me. I needed to, I needed knowledge. I needed to find out what I liked, do what I like to self-heal internally myself. So seek out face-to-face support from people who actually generally care about you, not what you have, but care about you. And one thing you said, Shay, that it touched me was encourage yourself. Encourage yourself. You don't have to wait for somebody to encourage you. You don't have to wait for somebody to speak into you. You speak into yourself. You have that power.
Right.
Life and death is in the power of your tongue as well. So if you use your tongue to speak into you, guess what's going to come forward? So that's something that I had to learn. Just putting all those things together to get beyond my moment into what I truly hoped for. And I just offer that to you all as well.
Awesome. And Eliza, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off of what all of you are saying, because it's basically what I hope, that if you are going through a domestic violence relationship, you're looking for help, there is help out there. I was told so many times that, nobody's going to help you. Your family's not here. You don't have anybody else. And those are things that an abuser will put into your mind so that you feel like they're all you have. And just know that there's always help out there for anybody that is need, like, in a domestic violence relationship. Also, you know, find out who your real circle is. I know it's hard to drop friends. I know it's hard to just get away from somebody that even, it might have been a childhood friend that you're just growing up with. And, it's hard to say, like, you know what, Lily was saying, that loyalty, like that ride or die, stick or friend, whatever. Sometimes you just gotta jump off that cliff and go on to another one. So that you can be on your marriage, they're still back there. Like, make a new circle, get people in your life that are in church, that are in faith, that are trying to work on themselves and just love themselves, like, internally. Because a lot of what I see is a shell of people that are, I'm gonna put all this makeup on, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and it's like who you are on social media and who you are behind closed doors it's kind of like my mom used to say, tell me who you with and I'll tell you who you are. So it's just finding the right people and putting it into a perspective of, I feel like when I lost a lot of older friends that weren't good for me, I gained so many blessed friends that I like prayed for. So, and I say, I got to tell you, you know, you're my
She's
so
so
I
funny.
just gotta throw it in there.
And what I
But
want to leave
yeah,
everybody,
just watch who you
oh,
surround yourself.
yeah, what I want to leave everybody with is either you're going to live through it or you're going to die in it. And I'm not talking
That's
about
right.
physical death. I'm talking about emotionally, mentally. You will die in it if you do not choose to live through it. Of course, for me, my prayer and my faith are everything, but that may not be your walk. That may
Mm-hmm.
not be your story. That may not be your testimony. So if it's not, I would encourage you to seek out who God really is. Just begin to let certain things, listen to music, that uplifts your spirit. If you are down, don't listen to sad songs. That's
That's
not
right.
going to help you. Do not keep, you need to create an environment and a circle of things that are conducive to your healing, that are conducive to your growth, and know that every day that you're breathing is another day to actually thank God for life. So if you're still breathing and you're still here, then there's still
Yeah.
a purpose for your life, and you have to know that. So
Mm-hmm.
I thank everybody again for joining us. Hopefully you're catching the replay because I know we're coming on fairly early, but leave us some comments on what you're going through and how you're going through it. Let's continue to uplift each person. I want everybody to have a safe and blessed new year. Wear your mask, wash your hands, as everybody says,
That's
and
right.
you got it. You got it. If nothing else, just know that you got it. So catch us next week, next Thursday at 2:00. Each one of us, I believe, have our own platforms. I did leave everything in the comment section, but share, like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And we'll talk with you next week. Bye.
I won't make it easy for you now. You got 2 minutes of my time.